Following program is sponsored by The Greek, Ely's Radio Shack dealer at 570 Altman in downtown Ely, and brought to you as a public service by Georgetown Media in Ely, Nevada. White Pine County Commission meeting, August 25th, 2021.
That'll work. I got to send one to
Good morning and welcome to the Wednesday, August 25th regular scheduled meeting for the White Pine County Commission. Would you all please stand and join us in the pledge? And Shane, why don't you lead us today?
Certainly. Would you follow me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as is normal, we'll take the first moment for prayer, meditation, or whatever you like. So, moment of silence for that. Okay, we'll open the county commission meeting right now, and the first item on the meeting is public comment. Is there anyone on the phone with public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This is Caroline McIntosh from White Pine County Tourism and Recreation. And I just want to remind everyone about the free barbecue and concert tonight in Broadbent Park. Q&D Construction is sponsoring the entire event as a thank you to our community for this great construction project that they're going to be wrapping up. Starts at 5 o'clock, the barbecue, and the music starts and go from 6 to 8. So again, it's at Broadbent Park tonight. It's free for everyone in the community. It'll be a great time. So thanks very much, and I hope you all can attend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else on the phone with public comment?
Mr. Chairman, this is Marietta Henry.
Yeah.
Chairman, White Pine Horse Races. I'd like to thank White Pine County for their support this year. It was greatly appreciated. I'd like to thank Ag 13 for their support, Bill Calderwood and his staff, Shane Farman, Fairgrounds host, White Pine County Horse Race Board, and all the many volunteers that made this a tremendous success this year. But especially White Pine County, thank you very, very much for all that you have done for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marietta.
Thanks, Marietta.
Is there anyone else on the phone? Hearing none and seeing none, we'll ask anyone in the audience. Any public comment from the audience? Anyone? Seeing none, George?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, did I ever tell you you need a gooseneck? Mr. Chairman, on your agenda item 1A, you're getting an update regarding the American Rescue Plan Act. Keep in mind when those monies are made available locally, there needs to be some consideration given to landlords that were not allowed to evict their renters for non-payment, nor was any effort to make a payment. You also need to consider a victim's fund for those that suffered harm and did not or have not received any restitution. That's been brought up more than once. Mr. Chairman, on your agenda item 1B2, you're to consider regarding, amending ordinance 476. That change needs to be denied. 30-room minimum was set there for a reason, to prevent unfair competition. Had Mr. Perea built his motel on the Nevada side of the border, he would not have much of an impact to face. However, he made a choice. He is not grandfathered in. Gaming is conducted under different rules and regulations. Allowing the change benefits only one entity, and that's just a sweetheart deal. That needs to be terminated. Laws are made to include everyone. This ordinance was not sponsored by a commissioner. I believe the DA is overstepping his bounds. This is a legislative issue. Mr. Chairman, on your agenda item 1F2, you're to consider a road agreement between White Pine County and Great Basin LLC. Once again, all negative impacts on any road, that road in particular on this particular agenda item, caused by that entity using it, must be responsible for all repairs. Not the taxpayers, not the taxpayers' employees, or the taxpayers' equipment. Mr. Chairman, on your agenda item 2(1)A and B, you're to consider building inspection services for the county. The county needs to terminate your present inspector, Brad Christensen. He is selectively enforcing the law under color of law. I've told you that for years. The contractor that I hired to roof my building at 570 Altman has yet to correct the sloppy work. Brad stated I hired a poor contractor. I remind you, I didn't give that contractor a license. You folks did. I'm forced to pay for a permit to provide for inspections and protection from shoddy workmanship. Instead, Brad did nothing. At a city council meeting, he told me, F you, you F and P. And at a later meeting, his wife called me an anal opening. Does your personnel policy address issues like that? I want an answer from your HR department. They've ignored me in the past. Your planning commission selectively enforces codes, many of which they're not familiar with. By having adopted the International Building Code, you can only enhance provisions. You cannot reduce minimum standards set. It took me 30 attempts to get a permit for a small job, and yet to date, the Community Choir Centennial Building has yet to purchase even one for roof repairs. They just did another one within a week or so. I've turned in complaints to the commission, the city council, the planning commission, yet nothing is done. Just recently, I get a letter, to be more specific, from Mr. John Charchelis and the planning commission. He needs to open up his eyes and do his job. I'm being cut off at 3 minutes. At the last couple of planning commission meetings, you had a county commissioner, a city and a county attorney. Still no results on any of the concerns that I brought forward. Yet you run me through the ringer. I want equal protection under the law. Mr. Chairman, on your agenda item 2B2, you're to consider an MOU with Eureka County to house Eureka County inmates. At earlier meetings when discussing the new jail, I asked, why are you building so many cells? Are you planning to rent them out? I was told no. All of the cells were White Pine County only. There would be no rentals. Why are we doing this now?
That's your 3 minutes, George, thank you.
I need some answers.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a couple of letters here. I'll read the first one. They'll be addressed during one of our agenda items. One of the letters is quite lengthy, but the second one is from Electra G. Larson, and it states, Mr. Beecher's request for funds not to exceed $11,000 to demolish 3 old metal Kennecott storage sheds is misinformation. They were built by private individuals when the mining companies owned the town, and they are still owned by private individuals. $11,000 could be better spent on improving McGill's infrastructure. The second letter is quite lengthy from Mr. George Giannopoulos of McGill, and it's concerning the same sheds. Those sheds will be addressed during our regular scheduled agenda item. The items are available to the public here in the building and are available at the clerk's office if someone wants to pick them up. But because we have a 3-minute item for each item, this would take a lot longer. So we'll be addressing that during our regular agenda item. In the meantime, I'm going to ask one more time, is there any other public comment on the phone? Anyone on the phone like to speak? Anyone in the audience like to speak? Elizabeth?
Yes, I'd just like to remind everybody that tomorrow we will be having public tours of the new the jail expansion over at the Public Safety Building at 1785 Great Basin Boulevard. They will be conducted between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So we encourage everybody to drop by and see this project before it goes into operation. Once inmates are transferred, it won't be open to the public anymore unless you become an inmate of the facility. So if you'd like to see it, please join us tomorrow between 10 and 2. Thank you.
Did you advertise that on the radio or on the newspaper?
No.
That's
Scott?
good.
We did, we reached out to KDSS and KPOY, it's on their Facebook pages, and it's also on ours, so we did send it out.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'll be there, and I'm sure most of us will. It's a very worthwhile tour, and I don't plan on being able to go in there after that.
I hope you're there too.
All right, hearing none and seeing no more public comment, we are gonna go into our regular scheduled meeting, which is on page 2. It's a 9 o'clock timed item, the American Rescue Plan Act. Item 1 is discussion, it's an update on the American Rescue Plan Act, the Nevada State Treasurer's Office. Is there someone on the phone from the Treasurer's Office in the state?
Looks like there is.
What would the name be?
Looks like Treasurer Zach Conan.
Yeah,
Zach Conan, are you on the phone?
we cannot hear him. It's unmuted on our end.
Could you unmute your phone and speak into it?
Let me try that.
Oh, you got it, there you are, okay.
Hey, okay. Good morning, everybody. It's Zach Conan, your Nevada State Treasurer. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good.
Fantastic. Do you all have the presentation in front of you, or better if I share it? What's the easiest way?
We could do either one, sir.
It'd be great if you could put it up. That way I avoid any technical difficulties on mine. Thank you.
Okay, it'll be just one moment.
We are up there. There we go.
Okay, we got you up and running, go ahead, proceed.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for all the help, Elizabeth, I believe. My name is Zach Conan. I am your Nevada State Treasurer, one of the 6 constitutional officers, typically referred to as the Chief Investment Officer of the state. And thank you so much for having us today. The Governor and I and others are in the process of going around and talking to as many people as we can about this American Rescue Plan and all the opportunities it provides. Really appreciate you all taking the time. I'll try to move relatively quickly, and then, of course, happy to take any questions. Could we go to the first slide, please? So we have an unprecedented opportunity to create the Nevada we deserve. At the end of the legislative session, the governor, myself, and legislative leadership put out something called the Every Nevadan Recovery Framework. And the idea there was to set up expectations about how the state was going to think through and then allocate and then spend what is frankly the most money we hope to ever get from the federal government at one time. And that's because something real bad had to happen to get us there, right? But now the money's here, and we need to make sure that it's spent in the most appropriate and safe and transparent and collaborative manner possible. And that's one of the reasons why we're so grateful that you all are willing to listen to us for a few moments this morning, because we know that the most effective way to get these dollars out the door is going to be in partnership with our counties, our cities, and non-entitlement units. Next slide, please. A little bit of background, just in case anyone needs it for the record. This money came through the American Rescue Plan, HR 1319, which was signed on March 11th. The package includes nearly $2 trillion of aid across hundreds of separate programs throughout the 50 states and tribal partners and territories. As of 8/4, We have known funding for 67 programs out of the 105. And this, if you could go to the next slide real quickly, speaks to a bit of the scope. Now, a lot of the conversations have been around, I see there's one or two category names not there, I'll fill those in. The state general aid portion is what we talk about a lot. That's the money that was wired to me on June 4th, totaling about $2.7 billion. That blue category to the left of it, kind of in the 9 o'clock region, is the local aid. That's money that was sent to counties and cities and non-entitlement units around the state. And that totals a little bit more than $1 billion, 1.04 billion. Now, those two numbers make up, that's a big chunk of money, right? But there's also $2.9 billion that have come in through 103, and we find more every week, 103 separate programs. The best way to think about those is we've got two buckets of cash. Cash and government speak, mind you, because there are still 150 pages of interim final rule detailing how that money can be spent, as well as 40 pages of frequently asked questions, which have been amended 12 times since they were first released on May 17th, right? So it's government, everything's probably a little overly complicated, but those are much more flexible dollars than the other $2.9 billion, which are effectively government gift cards, right? And so they can be spent all the way from $84,000 for elder abuse prevention to $160 or so thousand for paratransit. The big light blue or teal in the, say, 1 o'clock range is the $1.1 billion that has come in for K through 12. There's money for child care, there's money for housing, both rental assistance and mortgage assistance, there's money for transportation, et cetera, et cetera. And the goal of this process, if we can move on to the next slide, you know, there are different types of aid. I won't spend too much time here, but basically some of the aid comes in and it goes to whatever the purpose is. We have no choices, right? We have no programmatic choices. It just pluses up something that exists. There's quasi-discretionary aid, and that includes things like rental assistance. I heard there's a question in public comment earlier on about rental assistance. You know, one of the decisions that we made early at rental assistance out in White Pine County, of course, handled by Bill Brewer and his wonderful team over at the Rural Housing Authority, was to make the decision that the money would go directly to the landlord as opposed to the tenant. That was a choice that we could make on the state side, but we couldn't choose to use that money on something other than rental assistance, right? So quasi-discretionary. And the discretionary is able, we could spend it on X, Y, or Z within a set of rules, but pretty broadly. Now that aid doesn't mention, that $6.7 billion doesn't mention the billions of dollars that have come in directly to Nevadans through the American Rescue Plan. $3.7 billion in direct stimulus payments, hundreds of millions, soon to be billions of dollars in child tax care credit, the federal pandemic unemployment compensation, that additional $300 plus up to UI every month that rolls off in about, 10 days from now, and money to buy down the Medicaid exchange. Next slide, please. So in the framework, we set up effectively bands of prioritization and priorities for strategic enhancement. And the bands, I think probably at the local level, the county level, what we're finding is these resonate because you are balancing the difficulty between folks who need help right now and the opportunity to create and fix systems that have been broken or perhaps underinvested for a long time, right? And so we spoke to the Nevadans' basic needs, right? The needs that keep people alive, followed by the community, what can be done to help in that school system, what can be done to help strengthen the family, and then economy, right? How do we make sure we support small businesses? We've had some success there. Our office ran something called PET, the Pandemic Emergency Technical Support Grant Program, $100 million that went out to all 17 counties, businesses all around the state, almost 10,000 of them, and gave them $10,000 grants. One of the easier programs to access, although certainly we know there was more demand than there was supply. And then finally, quality of life. And that speaks to how can we fix things that make life better, not just for the folks who are fixing them, but from a generational perspective. And one of the metaphors that I like here, and maybe helps sort of frame the conversation, is the Nevada's basic needs is putting out a fire, right? You're dealing with something in the immediate. And when there's a fire, you put the fire out as the house burns down. But after the fire is out, you want to look towards maybe installing sprinkler systems, supporting the fire company so that they can put the next one out more quickly, right? Buying smoke alarms, et cetera. priorities for strategic enhancement. Now, these were actually made part of statute through SB 461, which we colloquially refer to as the waterfall bill, which also did things like make the commitment that we were going to use $330 million of the flexible money to pay down the state's borrowing from the federal unemployment trust fund. And what that does is it allows us to pay down what was borrowed without raising taxes. We thought that was really important. After the last time we borrowed during the Great Recession, payroll taxes rose for a little bit of time on Nevada businesses. And certainly the governor and I, and legislative leadership, had the priority of making sure the tax didn't increase on businesses, from a payroll perspective during this crisis. Next slide, please. And then if you can just click forward to one more. Perfect. So, as I said, an unprecedented amount of money deserves an unprecedented process, and that's what we're in the middle of right now. Step one of that process is listening. And in conversations with the White House, with the Federal Treasury, who's setting up most of the rules on this money, it is very clear that they want the process to be collaborative and intentional. In other words, they want us to not just talk to folks, but talk to folks and understand what projects they want to build, where their priorities are, and then from there develop a plan that meets those priorities, come up with here's what we think is going to happen, then do the work, then compare what we thought was going to happen to what did happen, right? And all that is part of the audit and reporting process. And of course, because it's a ton of money, from the person who manages the state's money, I can promise you we want to make sure to get it right so that we don't have to pay it back. So we're in the process of a listening tour. 75 days, 75 events. We're about 25, 26 days in, and we've done about 37 events. This is event 38. We will, I'm sure, blow through the 75 number and plenty more. And the reason we're doing these events is because we're collecting two types of feedback. We're collecting both qualitative feedback that says, gosh, these are the types of things I care about. I don't need something specifically, but these are the types of things I care about. These are my priorities as a Nevada. We're also collecting direct ideas. And so we've received hundreds of ideas from state agencies, from local governments, from nonprofits, from businesses, from individuals. And those ideas are pretty clean. They say, here's the problem I see in my community. Here's the thing that I want to fix. And then here's how I want to fix it. Some of those ideas come in and they're very big, right? Like the ideas that we get from our city and county government friends, the ideas we get from nonprofits are often very specific, right? If I'm a nonprofit that delivers food, if I had 2 more refrigerated trucks and 40,000 square feet more of space, I can serve this many thousand more people a week, and here's the architectural bids to do the work, and here's the floor plan, right? And where they literally need money and they will do the work that they do. There are other ideas that come in or other requests that come in that are more broad. I need access to healthcare. I can't get to work because I don't have transportation and it's too far away. My kid doesn't have broadband when they get quarantined from school, right? Now, we're not expecting, and it wouldn't be reasonable to expect everyone to know what the solution is to their problem, but by identifying the problem, that becomes really useful for us during step 2, and step 2 is already on the screen, thank you. We take that input, working with the legislature, with local governments, with other stakeholders. We bring them all together and we bucket those ideas into segments. K-12 education is one that the Department of Education's got a pretty good handle on, but higher education, job retraining, small business support, food insecurity, housing instability, etc., right? So each of those sets of ideas comes in so that we can look at, for instance, a solution for affordable housing and rental and homeowner support that is one solution with obvious statewide specific parts and local specific parts, but not 30 different housing plans, because we're trying to coordinate as much as possible to avoid overlap. It also gives us an opportunity to resource some of those ideas. So when ideas come in that say, gosh, I don't have access to healthcare, the solution for that person's access to healthcare could be that we build a federally qualified health center, which then has federal revenues that support it in their town. It could be that there aren't enough people in their town to support that, and so the solution becomes one of transportation. Can we move that to a federally qualified health center nearby that they could get access to the facilities they need, whether it's mental health or physical health. Or if neither of those work, is there a broadband solution, right, where we can figure out a way to make sure that broadband sign-up, that telehealth becomes available. Step 3, please. One more click on the slide, please. Thank you. And after finalizing the roadmap, of course, we work through the process of actually spending the fund. If this sounds like a long process, it is. There's a 75-day tour followed by at least that much time, probably a little more, on developing the roadmap. But the direction, right, is to invest this money, not spend it. As the governor said when he announced this process, he said, spending is easy, investing is hard. And it's going to take time to make sure we get it right. And frankly, we feel like we have a sacred obligation to get it right, right? $6.7 billion that my kids and your kids and grandkids are going to be paying for. Want to make sure that we invest it properly. Next slide, please. Why are we doing this? Oh, one, sorry, I got flipped a little bit in the deck there. It informs spending priorities by hearing from those who've been hit hardest by the pandemic. We want to talk about this. Decision on how to spend this money shouldn't be 63 legislators and the governor and I and a few others sitting in a room somewhere figuring it out, right? We need input from the community, and I think everyone's committed to that. Number 2, it allows local governments and states to coordinate so we don't duplicate efforts and ensure that every dollar spent is maximized. And this is one of the main reasons why I'm here today. There are certain things that are going to make more sense to do at the local level, and there's certain things that are going to make sense to do at the state level. But we want to make sure we're talking so that we don't either miss something that's important that we think the other side is going to do, or that we do something twice. Now, again, to be very clear, we have absolutely no control over how you all spend your money, and nor should we. You have no control over how we spend our money, but if we work together, the likelihood of success is going to increase. Best example I can make there is broadband. It will not make sense for there to be 17 different plans on how to fix broadband across Nevada. It will make sense for there to be one plan so that we can leverage resources from, say, Clark County or White Pine County, so that in places, especially in our rural communities, in our tribal communities, where the solution per person is going to be more expensive, right? We want to make sure that we've got the buying power that we'll have at the state level. We'll just get more done that way. Not to mention, the state has pockets of money the counties don't have access to, the cities don't have access to, that are specifically for broadband, right? So we hate for a county to spend money necessarily that could be spent on it more flexibly on something that where we have that gift card, right, specifically for. And number 3, it provides the opportunity to capture ideas and issues that may be ineligible under ARP guidance, but eligible for funding through other programs. There are many pockets of money that the state has historically not taken advantage of at the federal level. There are also, depending on what happens with the infrastructure bill and the reconciliation bill, there could be additional dollars flowing into the state from that. We also have tools like the state infrastructure bench, which your state treasurer and the chair of, which exists to try and find infrastructure projects that can help from an economic development or social need perspective and get those built. In other words, if something is a good idea, even if it doesn't work under this program, we want to make sure we've got it so we can either try to get funding under one of those other ideas or perhaps be handed over to the legislature for their consideration when they're back in session. Next slide, please. And this just gives a little bit more information on listening tours. No worries there, we can skip that. All right, a couple of things to remember. At NevadaRecovers.com, all spelled out, NevadaRecovers.com. You can put in both survey information, right? We encourage everyone to do that, everybody listening, everybody on the commission, all staff, anybody who wants to participate in making your state a better place, really would appreciate that feedback. And also, specifically, ideas, right? And every idea, everything that gets funded out of this money at the state level goes through a form. If the legislature wants to get something done, they put it through a form. If the executive branch wants to get something done, including governor, puts it through a form. We get forms from the Supreme Court relatively frequently for things they need to get done. We get forms from Clark County and Washoe and counties and cities all around the state, right? And the reason for that is twofold. One, we want to be transparent. This isn't about catching some politician at some events and telling you need to get a thing done, and then all of a sudden you've got money for it, right? Every idea you'll be able to track from where the idea originally came from, to the discussions that were had on it, to what the final determination